Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Standard Protocol. I'm your host, Matt Sutter. Thank you for joining us here. This is episode number 6. And we are still running on SoundCloud at this point. I know I mentioned in episode 5 we were transitioning over to YouTube. There's been some unexpected hiccups with that. So we are not up and running on YouTube yet, but we will be in due time. So if you're continuing to stick with us on SoundCloud, we greatly appreciate your followership and your listenership. It means a lot to us here. I wanted to start off the first show with an email that we received, and this is a kind of a callback to episode number 4. We talked about quiet firing and how that's taking place, and it's kind of a new movement that corporate America is testing out on the guinea pigs in the workplace, where essentially if they start ignoring you or stop asking for your feedback, things like that, could be a sign that you're quietly being fired or that you're not as valued as you once were in that company. And we did a whole segment on that back in episode 4. Somebody reached out to us via the email here. They didn't want us to say their name on the air, and that's fine. But they did want to bring up there is the reverse of that, which is quietly quitting. And that too is an issue that's taking place in the workforce. And I had to do a little research on that myself. I was a little surprised to learn that the quiet firing is as widespread as it is, but it sounds like quietly quitting is equally as widespread. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I do take issue with this particular topic a bit. Just because I understand how people get fed up with their employer and they get fed up with the company they're working for and they're being paid a low minimum wage while CEOs are making millions. And I understand all the frustration that comes with being a frontline worker out there serving the public every day. But the issue, when you're quietly quitting, basically you're just coming in every day, mailing it in, not going the extra mile to make sure you're providing good service. You're basically just doing the bare minimum to keep employed. And in a lot of cases, a lot of these studies I read, people don't really care if they stay employed or not. They're just there going through the motions until they can find something else to roll into. And that's fine. But the thing you need to be conscious of is that sometimes, and I would say not just sometimes, I would say most of the time, that translates into poor customer service for the person on the other side of the counter. And I have been one to complain quite frequently about poor service that I see as I go out and about, do my daily business. As a matter of fact, I went to a local pharmacy the other day and I stood at the counter while there were two attendants standing there. I stood at the counter for at least 2 to 3 minutes before they even noticed me. They were acting as if I wasn't there. And then it actually ended up, it was a third person that came out of the back that was the one that assisted me. So I've seen it everywhere, whether it's food service industry, pharmacy, just everywhere you go out to be waited on or have somebody help you or serve you. There does appear to be a lot of this quietly quitting that's going on out there. And it's okay to be frustrated with the corporation or to be frustrated with your role and the fact that you can't seem to get ahead. But please try not to let that bleed over into poor customer service, because we're all dealing with the same struggles out there. It goes back to what I said in earlier episodes. Every one of us is dealing with the same thing. We're all living in the same world here. We all have the same struggles, the same problems, the same frustrations. Please don't let yours bleed over and affect other people negatively. So if you are quietly quitting, do it quietly. That's the reason they call it quietly quitting. I guess I would recommend step 1 is don't quietly quit. Try to have a conversation with your employer, try to work things out. But if that's not possible and you're looking for other things and you're just coming in kind of going through the motions, I get it. But please try not to let that bleed over into poor customer service. So that's my take for the week on the quiet quitting, which was a callback from our quiet firing bit in episode 4. But please give us your thoughts and your comments on that. I didn't mention at the top of the show, but our standard protocol email inbox, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. Please feel free to send us your thoughts, opinions on the quiet firing, quiet quitting thing, and it's a big topic, and I had no idea until it was brought to my attention a few weeks ago how widespread it truly is. So it's going both ways. It's going with the employers and the employees, and so it definitely bears discussion. But with that, I'd like to roll over into topic number 2 for the day. Topic number 2, again, this is a callback to one of our earlier episodes. I don't recall which one, but I remember explaining that everyone needs to be comfortable in understanding the why of things, why we do what we do. And the angle that I came at it from was one of, if you're a leader or supervisor and you have folks that are responsible for going out and getting a mission done on a daily basis, they have to understand the why of why they're doing it. And, we talked at great lengths about that. You can go back and replay that episode in case you missed it. But I did want to talk about the other angle to that and kind of the flip side of the coin here when it comes to the why of things. Why do we do what we do? And it's not, it's not necessarily just incumbent upon the employer to explain the why of things. I think when you ask an employee that, they should have an answer to that as well. Why do you do what you do? If you were to ask me why I spent 18 years of my life in law enforcement, I would have told you my answer is to fend for people that can't fend for themselves. That's why I did that job every day, from being bullied as a young kid to growing up and becoming a responsible young adult and saying, you know what? I don't want people to have to go through the things that I went through in life. I'm going to go out, I'm going to serve the public, and I'm going to be the one that is there when people are victimized. I'm going to be there to, guide them through these situations because they are, in some cases, life-altering. Every time somebody is, robbed, raped, assaulted, whatever the case may be, you're there to help them through that process and fend for them when they can't necessarily fend for themselves. And that is why I did what I did for a number of years. But I think one of the things that I'm noticing about the younger generation, you ask them that question, and it's as if they've never thought of that. They don't have an answer prepared. They don't know. They just, well, it's a paycheck or it's a job or it's, I got out of college and I had to do something, so here I am. The purpose, I think, behind what we do needs to be better defined by the younger generation. And I think we, as millennials, need to take those Gen Zs aside and say, listen, let's figure this out. Why are you here? What do you want out of this career? What do you want to do in life? What do you want to accomplish? And what is your end goal? If you're young enough that you don't necessarily have end goals yet, you've just got a few short-term goals, that's fine. But goals are goals, and that gives you a purpose when you come in every day and when you go to work. So that, I think, is one thing that we need to do a better job with our youth of outlining is, why do you want to do something? What is your purpose here? And are you in this profession for the right reasons? If you wanted to become a doctor to make a ton of money, well, you can do that, but that may not be the right reason to be in that line of work, in that profession. Number one, it's a very difficult line of work. Number two, you have to be very compassionate about what you're doing. And if you're in it just for the money, at some point that's going to show through that you're not in it for the right reason, or that you're in it for a reason other than what most people in that field are in it for. So things to consider. Just anytime we're counseling or working with our subordinates or our youth, just try to encourage them to really define that why of what they want to do and have a genuineness Again, that's a callback to a previous episode. Have a genuineness about the reason why you do what you do every day and the meaning and purpose behind it. Make sure people can explain that and articulate that, because if they can, chances are they're on the right path. If they can't, we may have some work to do with those individuals. And the last topic I wanted to cover for this week is we got an email here, a gentleman asking about how do you fix problem employees, and how do you decipher if you have somebody that's making a lot of little mistakes. Is that fixable, or do we need to cut ties, or is it different than somebody that doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but when they do, they make big ones? How do we troubleshoot these things, and how do we get these people on the right path for success? And so I've given that a little bit of thought, and really, for me, what this all boils down to is what's called RPDM, Recognition Prime Decision Making. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole high risk, low frequency. There's a gentleman out there by the name of Gordon Graham, and he's a brilliant, brilliant man that travels all over, talks about this stuff, high risk, low frequency events and recognition prime decision making. But I will talk about the RPDM because there's a lot of research out there that shows that this actually does work, and it's a thing, and it's something that we need to hone in on when we're training people. Recognition prime decision making, basically in a nutshell, is this. Our brains function like hard drives. And whenever we're confronted with a situation, our brain scans itself and looks for something in that hard drive that's a similar scenario where we've had a positive outcome. And then your brain formulates a plan to get to that positive outcome based on the scenario that you're currently facing. So, and it takes into consideration things you've done in the past that have worked, things that have done in the past that have not worked. Your brain calculates all that very quickly, and you form a plan of action, and you get it done, and hopefully it's the right outcome. And that's why most of what we do out there goes right. Whether you're, no matter what field you're in, most of what you do goes right. If it doesn't, you're probably not going to last in that field very long. But most of what we do out there, even though there's so many environmental considerations that we can't necessarily control, most of what we do on a daily basis goes right. And that's because of that recognition prime decision making. So if you're confronted with a situation that you've never seen before, you've never been trained on before, that's where mistakes get made, because there's nothing in that hard drive for your brain to draw off of to formulate a plan with a successful outcome. And the example I always use, I live here in the Midwest. So if I'm walking out to my car tomorrow morning to get in and to take off, and all of a sudden there's a mountain lion standing there that's reared up and ready to go, I've never had that happen before. I've never been in that situation before. I know mountain lions do exist here, but I've never seen one. If I'm confronted with one in my driveway tomorrow morning, there's a good chance that I'm not going to make the right decision. Do I stand still and hope that it goes away? Do I make noise and hope that I scare it away? If I grab a shovel out of the garage and start swinging it, is that going to make it run away, or is that going to make it go into fight mode and all of a sudden it's going to start tearing me apart? I have no idea. These are things I don't know because I've never been trained in this situation, and there's a high probability that I would do the wrong thing and probably get hurt in that situation just because I have nothing in my hard drive to draw off of. But things that we do every day, things like going out, checking the mailbox, even when you're driving, do you remember stopping at every red light? No, your brain just formulates this plan because it knows what to do when it sees a red light. And that's that recognition prime decision making kicking in. So how do we overcome these issues with employees? Well, we do it by way of training and repetition, and we try to get them exposed to as many things as we can, and we try to get them as many repetitions as, if they're working on the assembly line and they're putting widgets together as they come down the line, we make sure that they do that 100 times before we just turn them loose and leave them unsupervised, right? Or at least I hope that's what we're doing. But when people make mistakes, it's because there's something there that they haven't seen before, and it's generally a decision-making process, and they don't have anything to draw off of, and that's why it goes south. Is there misconduct from time to time, and that leads to poor decision-making? Certainly, that happens, but it's very rare. That's not the norm at all. Generally, when things go wrong, it's because of that recognition prime decision making where nothing's kicking in for that individual because they haven't been dealt that situation before. And so that's why everything that we do, every time there's a mistake, we need to take a look at it. We need to look at if there were systems in place, policies, training, procedures, ways that we could have circumvented this. And if those systems weren't there, then we need to implement them. We need to work on that. We need to either retrain, do some remedial training with that employee, or maybe we just need to pull the entire team in and say, hey, look, here's something that happened the other day. We didn't know this was possible, but it just happened, and here it is. So we all need to be aware of it now, and everybody should know that whatever happened wasn't a successful outcome, and here's how we make it a successful one on the next one. And you plant that seed in that hard drive so that they have something to draw off of the next time they're confronted with that. So that, to me, when you talk about troubled employees, if you have people that are continuously making bad decisions, that might be something bigger that you need to deal with on a, performance improvement plan or whatever the case may be. But if it's just the occasional bump in the road or the occasional outcome that isn't necessarily what we desired, generally it's because we need to take that individual, we need to do some training, and we need to build up that RPDM so that kicks in when they're confronted with whatever it is that they're doing out there, and they know how to get it done right. So I'm a firm believer that everyone is salvageable. I've seen people that you never thought could do a certain job. If we take some extra time and train them and get them up to speed and give them a lot of repetitions, and sometimes it's a lot of repetitions, generally speaking, we can salvage them and we can get them to being a optimal performer again. So everybody has that hard drive, and everybody's rebootable to a certain extent, I think. So hopefully that answers your question on that. If not, shoot me an email. I'll try to do it better. standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close things out here for episode number 6, but I just wanted to remind you of the email inbox, standardprotocolpodcast@gmail.com. Please make sure you send us those topics. They're huge as far as fueling the show and giving us topics of conversation here. So we couldn't do this without your help, without your support. We appreciate you listening to us on SoundCloud, and we will be live on YouTube soon. But with that, we're going to close out episode 6. Take care. Be safe out there.